So I'm really excited and honored to welcome our next speaker to stage. I told you earlier how I met Carrie in Mexico last year. I also met our next speaker, Reginaldo, Haslett, Marroquin, at the same meeting. It was kind of a crazy adventure getting there. I was supposed to fly on September 19th, which was the day that Mexico City had their huge earthquake. And I know that there were a lot of us who were heading to this meeting that was put on by a group called Regeneration International to get together and have a conversation about what is the meaning of regenerative agriculture. And it felt auspicious. But being at that meeting, there were a lot of wonderful people, and Reggie was one of them. He was one of the keynote speakers at this event and was there to show us this amazing model that he has developed as part of the Main Street Project, where he is a chief strategy officer of a pretty amazing poultry production system. And the system is amazing, but I think that more important is how the system supports the people that are implementing it. And I think that he is a whole systems thinker in a way that is really remarkable. And right before we were talking in the back of the room before I stepped up here, and he said, I'm going to put chickens on the map. And so I'm excited to hear his thoughts on how to do that and have him talk about what solutions that he's implementing in terms of regenerative agriculture. So I'd like to welcome to the stage Reginaldo Haslett Marroquin.
Thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here. This is one of the premier stages, and you people are really intimidating, too many of you. And I picked this microphone so I can move around and get the blood moving. So hopefully today we're going to put the chickens in the map. One thing I'm going to just put out is that chickens isn't what we do, okay? We're going to talk about chickens, because they are the center of a new design and a new way of thinking about nature. But chickens isn't what we do. Food systems is what we do. And when I'm done, I hope that will be clear. So again, thank you for this opportunity. It's really amazing. And I'm gonna just focus on the content. So here's our team in Minnesota. And please, Paula and Julie and Wilbur, would you please just stand up so everybody knows who you are? Because when we are done, I hope you have 1 million questions. And Tony didn't make it, right? So it's the three of you. Okay. So when we're done, also harass them, not just me. So we're not going to spend too much time on that. But just so you know, we have teams now in many places. We have the established teams, which are in Guanajuato, Mexico, in Pine Ridge, in San Miguel de Allende, in Guanajuato, in Guatemala and British Columbia. We also have teams that are under development. Let's see which screen I can look at better. I think it's that one. It's a problem in not having a screen close to you. So we have under development is Winnebago in Nebraska, Fairfield, Iowa, Omaha, Nebraska, and Graham, are you here? Graham Christensen? Okay, so Graham is also at the conference. He's not here right now, but he's part of the team in Nebraska, really heavily involved in organizing that region. And we have teams under development right now in Indiana, in Ohio, and in New Hampshire. Those are actually moving along. Now, what I wanted to do was to show you this map so that you don't think that we are coming here with this idea of small-scale chickens, backyard chickens. We're going to show you that we brought all of the ancient technology, ancient knowledge, and indigenous approaches to what we do, but we're not interested in little flocks here and there. We're interested in building a new industry, and industries don't get built by putzing around. Let's put it that way. First thing you understand if you're going to redesign something is understand its origins, okay? We did that for 2 years. We didn't talk about this. We focused on understanding what makes the chicken the chicken. And one thing that you will know, all of its behaviors, eating habits, roaming habits, almost everything, even the gut of the system, even the gut of the chicken is fully in alignment with jungles. Okay, I know that there is a whole movement in this country about pasture poultry. I respect that. We respect that. We're not here to criticize them, but let's put the chicken back to where it belongs. And it belongs in the jungle, under canopies, eating stuff that has very little to do with grasses. Okay? So that's the first fundamental piece of regenerative engineering. You got to go back to the origin of things. Otherwise, you're always going to be fighting nature. And if you're fighting nature, guess what? You lose every single freaking time. And I don't come from places where we like losing. And so that's why we went back this far. All right, but having said that, you also have to understand that as farmers, we tend to think of ourselves as producers of things, carrots, chickens, cows, and all of that stuff. Now, what if I told you that we produce, I have this word that wants to come out, but I'm not going to say it. We don't produce anything, okay? Not even nature produces anything. Now, if anybody put you in that space, in that spot before, please put yourself in that space continuously as you do farming. Why? Because nature works on fundamental principles of biodynamics, of thermodynamics, and energy, which is everything you have around you. In fact, at the end, you yourself, you are energy. This podium is energy at the end of the day. That energy has existed from the beginning of the universe, and it will be there before we are gone. All nature does is organize that energy in the form of cows and grasses and chickens and carrots and all of the stuff that we call food. But we don't produce anything. Nature just allows for those biophysical and chemical processes to create such sophisticated and just amazing time-tested ways of organizing things that on one side are unedible to us and puts them in a process by which it becomes edible for us. So we are not producers of anything. So if we're not producers, what are we? We are energy managers. And when we take that responsibility seriously, then we will put natural science and technology into our engineering processes, and that's what we did with the chicken. So how does it go then? How does energy flow in the case of chicken? And keep in mind that when we manage energy instead of production, then we get into this space where we win significant competitive advantages, especially reduce labor, reduce cost, and reduce stress to the animals, to the spaces, to the landscape, to consumers, and so on. So for us, the energy comes into the form of feed or grain into the chickens. The chickens are tree range, not free range, tree ranged, okay? In that process, most of the energy that we capture is actually not from the soil. As you know, if you don't know this, read Dr. Anderson's Energy, Life Cycles of Energy Through Agriculture, and you will see where the scientific backing is put into why 80% of the biomass that is being captured in the form of eggs, plants, and all of that is actually coming up from the air. It's not coming from the soil. But the soil is the permanent battery system that allows for that energy to be transformed and captured and taken. So basically, we have never needed inputs in our farms. We have never needed them. But we engineer a system that actually requires them, but it doesn't need them. And why does it need it? Because there is plenty of photons, plenty of CO2, plenty of methane, plenty of gases floating around that are perfectly capable of becoming the food that we need. And some of it is actually also in the soil. Now, inside the paddock, we produce and then harvest now I'm going to use the term produce because we're now managing energy so that it can be produced into edible products. So in that space, we can harvest, meat, eggs, hazelnuts, elderberries, and up the canopies. In this case, we're talking about canopies that can rise all the way up to 200 feet in the northern rainforest, for example. So technically for us, an acre is a flat piece of land that is measured in square feet. For our poultry system, an acre is actually measured three-dimensionally, 12 to 15 feet deep and up to 200 feet high. In the Midwest where we are, we're talking about 1,111,200 cubic feet per acre. Now, if you're realtors, don't start using that as a way to calculate your land value. It's not going to work yet. In the future, it should. So that's an acre to us. It's not square foot. Why? Because we are producing all of this energy. We are capturing all of that energy. And even though we are just harvesting meat, eggs, and hazelnuts and elderberries, the rest of the energy that is being captured is critical for the building of the regenerating process. That energy excess that comes out of the harvest, in the form of manure, giblets, and feathers, is taken out and put into landscape-based production where there is no chickens, but there is still production going on. When we need grain and we need other things for the chickens after all, and they're not going to produce that in the paddocks where they are roaming. So the non-paddock production then gets us a new harvest of energy, which comes in the form of vegetables, perennials, nuts, fruits, and so on and so forth. Basically, what we know as traditional farming. Some of that energy goes back into the system and recycles all over again. At the end of the day, we are harvesting between 30 and 40% of all of the energy that was captured. That means we are regenerating at 70%. 70% of that energy goes back into the system, and that is what regenerative agriculture's concept is all about. See? So in this system, you got 70% of energy that you never harvest, you never sell, you put it back into the flow, and that means your next cycle starts better off. And then the next cycle starts better off, better off, better off. There is no worse off. There is no diminishing returns. There is no point of diminishing returns. You see, that's how nature designed things. And when we follow that, it makes economic sense like beyond your wildest imagination. It restores the ecology and it restores the connectivity between people, as I'm going to show you in a few minutes how that is done. So basically what we do is we engineer to optimize economic, social, and ecological returns. The whole triple bottom line, but engineered to do so rather than just being stuff that you talk out there in the market. This doesn't even have to be labeled, doesn't have to be certified, because it works. And when something works, it just gets done. See? That's the way we see it. Now, if somebody wants certified, you're welcome to come and certify it. No problem with that. I mean, I know that's critical in some markets. For some companies, they need that. But this is perfectly certifiable. Now, every engineering process starts with a production unit. From a table, a chair, a trucking company, you got to have a production unit that you can spec out so that you can develop curriculum, training, enterprise management, financials, impact, everything. Whether you're measuring carbon sequestered or whatever, eggs produced, whether you're taking, say, Epic needs 200 million chickens, we have to be able to break that order into a unit of production, which then becomes a farm level production. Then becomes a cluster so that we can actually deliver those quantities in a predictable, consistent, verifiable way. That's the production unit. For us, is the building, is the 2 paddocks. We started with 4 way back, and then we ended up with 2. That's where the regeneration process balanced out. While 1 paddock regenerates, the other one is used. And it goes back and forth. 80 days later, those chickens are out. The whole thing comes back in a hurry, and then we start all over again. That paddock is managed with perennial crops again, and annual crops to begin, so that you can actually create the canopy. The canopy is essential. What the canopy does is lowers the temperature of the soil. It restores it keeps it at around 70 degrees, which is critical for the micro and macroorganisms, vertebrates and invertebrates, to develop heavily. And then after they do, what happens is that the manure that the animals deposit there is heavily taken up, rapidly taken up, and turned into nuts and all of that. And we've tested this over the last 4 years, and we were able to triple and quadruple the amount of hazelnuts that we were getting per bush because of these cycles, compared to 2 universities that have been doing research and development on hazelnuts for over 40 years. and we quadrupled their production in less than 2 years. That's how beautiful nature works. And so the hazelnut is almost as important to our poultry system as the chickens themselves. If we were producers, we will be thinking about eggs and meat and broilers. But we are energy managers, see? That's a very different thing. And this is not easy to grab. It takes indigenous training. It takes indigenous knowledge and understanding of nature to grab these things. Most folks coming out with PhDs and all that are having a hard time with this because for too long we have been working on this linear way of thinking about agriculture. You put inputs in, you go through this whole process where you put the machines or labor and whatever, and then at the other end you get outputs, and that's how you work, and that nature doesn't work that way. So no wonder a lot of us are losing our shirts. Vertical production, that's why we can't think of our acre as a flat piece of land. Alley cropping systems, which are fed by the energy that came out of the coops. We're not going to put that manure into the paddocks because then it will create an overload of energy in that space where the perennials are. Alley crop grains allows us to bring that energy back into the production of the chicken. This is a picture from the USDA. This is alley crop systems, grain systems out of the National Agroforestry Center in Lincoln, Nebraska. Nothing new there. But bottom line is, being a farmer, being a good farmer doesn't build an industry. Industries are built on blueprints that have much larger scale impact and are built to a size so you can build support systems, infrastructure, and all of that. So how does it work for us? You take the chicken, the egg, both the egg and the chicken. Don't worry about which came first. You can use whichever one you want. But if you want to know which came first, because we did the research, the chicken is the closest relative to T-Rex, by the way. That's why chickens eat each other. They are cannibals. They are aggressive. If you faint in the chicken coop and you got any injury, even if you don't have injuries, they will peck you away. You can have it guaranteed. Don't try it. Unless, Now, if you want to try it, do it on someone else. So you take those two, and you're going to have aggregation of enterprises. So we think of this not as farms, not as production. We think of these sectors as enterprise sectors. That's why we talk about clusters of farms, not farms. Because clusters is what makes economic sense, ecological sense, and social sense. You can't bring cohesive social relationships if all you have is a farm. Lone wolves don't work for our system because they don't build the cohesiveness and the actual energy flows. And the energy flows is not just energy as in the way we understand from a physical and chemical perspective. It's also energy between us. If we are not connected in a way that is positive and that is constructive, that is tolerant, that all of those things are in place, we are not regenerating the most important part. And here I'm going to put the plug because this is really not about the ecology, it's not about the economy to begin with. It's about people, stupid. That's what we should have said to begin with. The economy and the ecology works because we make it work or doesn't work because we don't make it work. That's where the foundation is. Chickens are not destroying the planet. Pigs are not destroying the planet. Cows are not doing that. Guess who's destroying the planet? Most of the people who are destroying the planet got PhDs, by the way. You don't see my dad, who doesn't write or read, creating GMOs or spreading the heck out of all these fields with stuff that you shouldn't even be on Earth to begin with. The Earth put them down in the ground so we could be around here. And here we come, the most enlightened and most trained people, and grab them out of the earth and put them back out, which made us, I don't know. I mean, I could go, I gotta. I gotta stick to my topic. And it's about economics. But we make them work. If you want to make them work, aggregate, stack, develop. And as you see, it's not about just grain processing, it's about the poultry, it's about poultry processing, about eggs and eggs processing, it's about manure processing, it's about taking that and putting it into food security, it's about all of these enterprise sectors, and all of them are possible because we do the chicken well. This is what we call industry development. This is how we are supposed to do chickens. If we expect regenerative poultry-centered agriculture to actually become that. And it's the same thing whether you're doing cattle, whether you're doing pigs or turkey. This is the same blueprint. What we created was an engineering blueprint for a process that creates regenerative cycles, not a process for a chicken alone. This is nature at its best. But you have to accept that you are not a producer. If you're still thinking as a producer, you continue to lose your shirt, you continue to fight with nature, and something will come out, whether it's a big storm, climate change, or market changes, whatever, is going to take you down. Right now, the largest organization in the United States, Organic Valley, for example, what is happening with the milk producers there? Very vulnerable. The whole leadership right now is scrambling for alternatives because they know that they're still too vulnerable. It's not like you can be big enough in this country to not face those kinds of vulnerabilities. And besides that, there is a whole corporate power structure that by changing a single rule at the federal level, for example, can make a lot of us irrelevant. And we don't have that corporate power yet. So by organizing this way, we not only build the ecological continuity, the social interconnectedness and regeneration, the economic packaging, so you can take $1, you put $1 into this, and our estimate right now is that you get $5 to $12 value out of it. That is because it circulates. Money, in our case, follows the energy flow. And if you get into managing energy instead of producing stuff, then you make money because money follows the energy. Just look at your bills. Look at where you spend money on the farm. In energy, inputs, labor, tractors, blah, blah, blah. You get it. And not only that, but many are destroying the very foundation that could produce energy for them by spending money on energy to begin with. So you see, this is the kind of stuff we got to question. At this level, we get to provide system-level services, enterprise management, financial, land access, all kinds of infrastructure that is not possible if you are a lone wolf. Or even if you've got a small-scale operation with few farmers around you, there is not enough throughput to be able to justify those services. So what are we going to do if you got a nice operation with all of this stuff going on, you got good niche markets and all of that, but you don't have that infrastructure? You are just one little step from being gone again. And we put that services through that enterprise design, and at the end, you do have a regenerative system, a triple bottom line impact. Not because we are saying it, but because it's designed to do so. It's design that matters. So, let's say you're ready to roll, right? I mean, I don't expect you to be ready yet, but I hope you'll be ready when we're done. We have a process. We have tested all of those places we work with. You may think they are scattered. They are not scattered. What they were strategically selected sites so that we could test our system on different ecologies, different economies, and different social contracts. You see, that was the reason we did that. And as a result of that, we became agile, smooth, quick, and professional at how we deploy these systems. If we had only tested in one place, which a lot of people like to do, just keep it here, don't move it, don't spread it, don't share it. No, we did exactly the opposite. And that gave us a lot of experience. So out of that experience came this roadmap to transitioning, no matter where farmers may be at this point, with the units of production, the proofing, the farm level, the regional integration, and then the institutionalization, which is where we put all of the curriculum and all of that, make it available to the educational organizations or through structures regionally that may be prepared to train farmers and deploy them. This transition delivers you a fully productive, fully integrated, vertical, three-dimensional production unit, farms, and regions. So the farm level training. We just began the deployment of the Main Street Farm. This is a 100-acre operation that has all of those different paddock and non-paddock alley cropping production system with 6 units for a dual purpose, eggs and meat production. This 6 units you see is just roughly just over 12 acres. Out of those 12 acres, we will be quadrupling the amount of gross income that the whole 100 acres were generating before we come into this. It was generating $80,000 a year doing corn on corn on corn on corn. Once, I think they did soybeans over 35 years. We will triple and probably quadruple that income out of just that space where the poultry is being raised. The rest of it is going to be beyond that. That's why we are saying with all confidence, you put $1, you get 5 to 12 out of the same space. And you regenerate it. And because this is a really fragile water system in here with 3 to 4 feet water table, we now get to protect all of that water as well. This is just the process by how that farm is coming together. All of you will be able to come out there and get trained on our system very soon. So here's one of the examples of what that farm is going to do. We just finished this, and Wilbur was in charge of that research. We said we believe that regenerative poultry should use very little feed because you are managing energy, not production, right? So we said we're going to go ahead and try to get a flock raised with no more than 50% feed, the rest of it other kinds of forages and stuff. And by the way, the forage for us is very important. Forages are very important, but most important is what the composition of the forage is. Biomass and also fiber and protein. We don't want any forages that got more than 10% fiber, and we want as much protein as possible. So, for example, forages, we are talking about lamb quarters, we're talking about mallow, we're talking about this amaranth. Amaranth, you guys call it pigweed. But most important, this year we incorporated comfrey. And comfrey is the best, it has the best profile for us because it's got up to 26% of available protein and no more than 10% fiber. Because remember, the chicken is not a ruminant, so fiber is a problem. That's why grasses don't work, because grasses are mostly fiber, and it takes the chicken more energy to process the fiber than what it gets out of it. So technically you are losing egg production and you are losing meat production if you put chickens on pasture. So that's why we went with forages. And those forages, now we are expanding them and moving them into a whole new way. But you can also grow a lot of these forages outside, bale them and bring them in. So what we did was we put this idea, this theory through a process, and we were able to reduce, by 67% the amount of feed that we fed this flock. Now, tell me, if you're a poultry farmer, what's the biggest problem of raising chickens? Feed. 60 to 70% of the cost of a dozen egg or a pound of meat is feed. So this was not pulled out of thin air. We knew what we were doing. We want to nail the biggest problem in our feed. And why, in the food for the chickens, and why did we pick that profile of forages that I was giving you? Because if 70% of your cost of producing a pound of eggs or meat is feed, and the largest percentage of the cost of that 70% is protein, soybeans, then what are you going to do? Pick high protein, low fiber. Why? Because feed conversion rates shoot through the roof if you feed the biota, which is the foundation of the energy transformation, and if you lower the content of fiber, because fiber is what robs that energy. And then you get this absolutely healthy chicken. Not only did we achieve that level of result, bringing down the cost by $1.22 per chicken, so 30 cents a pound. Dang! Like, imagine, you could drop that cost right now without doing anything else but actually improving your ecology. I mean, wouldn't you do it? It looks beautiful. When I meditate, I actually go in the chicken area. Because it's so exciting. You can't get enough of it. But we're not here to show research. I just wanted you to know that when we do research, we mean it, and we do it so that farmers will do better, and so that we will be more competitive. Now, imagine the claims that we can put into this chicken in the market. There is no system in this whole country right now that can compete on claims with us. And that is guaranteed. As marketers, as business people, I can tell you that if you are a buyer, you want to buy this chicken. If you're an investor, you want to invest in this kind of system because this is where the money actually keeps floating. And what's the foundation of making money to begin with? Right? So, the efficiency matters. So, where does it matter the most? In this case, labor, energy, and optimization of production. So that's why we will never, from the beginning, ever move the coop. Because that takes labor, and it takes energy, and it takes money. Time, in this case, yes. You know, despite the fact that we don't like those terms, time is money at the end of the day. And the most important thing, see, I grew up doing hard labor my whole childhood. We worked in ways that I would be surprised if any of you worked the way we did, okay, physically. So I'm sick of it. See, I'm not interested in working. I'm allergic to it. And I want to work with people who are allergic to work because work isn't what we are here for. Why? Because we are energy managers, not laborers. And so reducing the labor was critical. That building was spec'd out over and over and over until we got it to the point that we put the least amount of work into it. And the chickens do most of it. So, if you, as any farmer would be, or investor, or buyer, want to know what that looks like, 1.5 acres is the unit of production that I mentioned for broilers. We put around 1,500 birds in our godforsaken land in Minnesota where we get, you know, very little time to grow things. And most of the time we are like, you know, frozen. We get 3 flocks, about 4,500 birds. That's about 18,000 pounds, about 4 pounds dressed. Though the average, if you saw the research, 4.13 and 4.31 pounds is what we got out of those broilers. While reducing their feed by 50%, I mean 67%. Gross wholesale value in this case at $3.25 a pound, which we do direct, is $58,500 for that acre. The farmer's gross income is around $36,750 at $7.50 a chicken. That's a good price under our system, by the way. The farmer gets to make, you know, with 8 or so production units per farm, a farmer can easily grows between 50 and 60,000 that they take home, and I mean paying themselves as laborers. You know how weird that is in farm country, right? Paying yourself to do farming. Dang, that's an innovation. After establishment, 5 years, we get hazelnuts, around 2,500 pounds, according to the current data that we have collected for the last 4 years. That's about $7,500 worth of hazelnuts at $3 each. That's in-shell hazelnuts that we can chuck in the farm and all of that. You put that into the whole farm income, and you got about $41,000. That's $27,500 per acre. Now, this is a lot of data already, a lot of years testing and testing and testing. Just like we never talked about our system until we had it, you know, to a level of credibility. We didn't start talking about numbers until we had tested them over and over enough. Now, egg production follows the same process. You know, 2,000 eggs, approximately maximum per unit. That gives you around that total production per year. At this current price of $2.90, the farm can get around $123,000. And $2.90, by the way, is really competitive. In most of the markets that are selling these kinds of eggs right now, selling them for $6, $4, $4.50, $5, you know, you name it. $2.90 for the farm, that's okay. At least for a while, then we have to get better at this and capture more markets and hold our price. Hazelnuts, we're planting about twice as much because the unit is 3 acres instead of 1.5, and this has to do with a lot of science and technology in terms of ranging. You take that and you get about 5,000 pounds of hazelnuts, about $15,000 of income. That's about $148,000 for that 3-acre place. That means an estimated $46,000 per acre. This is what we did in San Miguel de Allende in Mexico so that we could actually nail down the process. So 3 years later, we're able to kind of get behind this kind of data. But that's not the idea, right? The idea isn't farms or production units. The idea is clusters. So what if you take this and put it into a cluster? Just for broilers, that would be around 250 units per cluster. And you divide that into how many production units that will be per farm, and you get the number of farms. So if somebody comes to you and say, I want 100 million broilers, you can calculate, this is mathematical now. It's nothing to do with anything else anymore. So retail value, $25 million roughly from that. That takes us a farm gate value of around 15 million. That puts us at about processing value around 3 million. So you can actually set up processing facilities that are not the greatest, because this is very tiny in terms of processing, but it's enough now that we can actually start surviving on the processing side, which is the biggest bottleneck in the country. Retail operating margin around 7 million, so that retailers can make money as well. But we don't compromise anybody in that supply chain. Now you take that, yearly hazelnuts, the whole cluster can produce around $10 million worth of value based on the current data we have. Value to farmers of that is 4 million. You take that, over 7,000 acres, which is actually a portion of some of your farms, and you get an aggregated cluster value of $37.9 million roughly, which is really the foundational point at which we want to start deploying these systems. And that allows us to impact the economy in a way that is sustainable, the water, the ecology, the restoration of the soils, and more importantly, changing lives so that immigrants, small farmers, all of those that are normally left in the edges, that's why the unit is 1.5 or 3 acres, so that everyone can access the system. See, when we design for larger systems, the little guy like me never really gets in. When we design for the little guy, everybody else can get in. One side is discriminatory, the other one is fully inclusive. We are fully inclusive. So, tree-ranging chickens is really the next big thing in this country. We hope you will help us make it the next system that dominates the landscape. We have built industry-level infrastructure already. So we got, on the financial side, we got Iroquois Valley Farms for land transition, and share capital for working capital and for investments. So if you're an investor, here are your 2 places you want to put your money. These are technically our money managers. We are not money manager organization, so we needed partners, right? Same with other areas. We're going to look for partners so that we can manage at scale the different components of deploying an industry-level infrastructure. We also built 4 basic components for this infrastructure. The nonprofit, which is us, which does all of the backbone. The tree range, which does all of the regional production, supply chain, distribution, all of that. The independent farmers who become part of the system, and the Regenerative Agriculture Alliance, which is the platform on which we're going to organize and network and build what we call the corporate power for the system. And in that level, we're actually going to be working with grass-fed folks and anybody else who's doing regenerative agriculture that is actually validated by some scientific backing, like we have validated our side. So we want others to also validate their system so that we not certify, none of that really matters. But as long as they know what they're doing, and we know it's based on indigenous knowledge, and we know it's actually regenerating from the energy standpoint, then we want to bring all of those families together and build corporate power. So the system as a whole is not something we want to talk about today, but just so you walk away knowing that we were not here to talk about doing chickens. We were talking about restructuring and redesigning food and agriculture based on real regenerative science. So the whole system looks more like that. Within that is our poultry, but it goes beyond because, again, it's about energy. So thank you. Appreciate your time. Do we have time for questions? Okay, you tell me when we shut up. Okay, we'll start right here.
I noticed that you didn't have Wyoming on your list of partners, and I'd be happy to partner with you in Wyoming.
See, here's the thing. We are not the ones who put these things in the map. They put themselves on the map. We just facilitate the process. So you want a Wyoming chapter, you facilitate the process, we'll make sure you get everything we got.
Hello. Testing. So you said chickens are jungle birds, and we are obviously not in a jungle. pretty arid out here. Do you feel like this is a system that could work in arid climates?
You'll be surprised how much of a jungle you got here. See, the thing is that you may not be seeing it yet. But, for example, right down the road here, by the Rio Grande as well, we are really close to it, you got a resort. What is it called? I forgot. But they already built a jungle there. You know, they're cutting trees there that are over 50, 60, 75 feet high probably. They restore some wetlands there too. And we do have the ability that you can bring species, a system that can provide the protein. Chickens much prefer animal protein than vegetable protein. That's guaranteed. If you put a chicken into pastured and forages and bugs, they will eat the bugs until they are completely gone, scratch the ground and all of that, and then wait for a long time to start starving before they start with everything else. It's like my 15-year-old. Can't make them eat the vegetables. But if somebody's got a scalable system, the one thing we don't do is incorporate stuff that can't grow to scale, because we are not interested on the farm level operation. And what I have seen is those kinds of initiatives working if what you're running is a farm. But not when we're talking about 30, 40, 50, 100 million pounds of protein that we need to supply. But if somebody's got that, please talk to us, because we do want that.
I think we have to cut off the questions right now. I'm sorry.
But Julie's here, and Wilbur's here, and Paula's here, and we'll be around. So please come to us. I was going to say tackle us, but I'm too small for that.